Good morning.
Good morning.
Namaste, India.
Namaste.
I'd like to thank Akhil for that very generous introduction, and I would also like to thank you for addressing me as Dr. Rinchen, not Professor. I wish I was a professor, but I'm Rinchen and happy to be called as Rinchen in our conversations. What I'm going to talk about is inclusion practices in Bhutan, but before I actually start off with my presentation, I'd like to take this opportunity to also extend my most sincere gratitude to SNDT, Women's University Department of School Education, especially Professor Sujata and the Vakeel Foundation for inviting and giving me this opportunity to be part of this amazing conference. Thanks a lot. For those of you who have already been to Bhutan, who knows a bit about Bhutan, this is going to be a kind of a refresher. For those of you who have not been to Bhutan, who do not really know much about Bhutan, this is going to be an introductory session for you. Okay. Bhutan, in terms of location, is located between China and India, the northeastern part of India. The southern foothills of Bhutan are bordered by the state of West Bengal, and the northern part bordered by the autonomous region of Tibet, now China. This is going to be the overview of my presentation. I'll give you a very brief background and context to the country, status of inclusion of children with special educational needs and disabilities, prevalence of disability, some of the recent milestones and developments towards inclusion efforts in the country, some policies and legislations, both national and international context, and then I'd like to also inform you that the last point was supposed to be in my next slide, but I just read it out. In terms of Bhutan, we are a country that prides in the preservation of our rich environment. And we are, I think there are not many countries in the world that is carbon negative, and we pride in the fact that we are one of these 3 or 4 carbon negative countries. As you can see, we are a very small nation. We are a very small nation, bordered by the 2 Asian giants. The population of the country is not even 1 million. In terms of religion, the majority of the population follow Buddhism, the Vajrayana form of Buddhism. And the form of country, government that we have is a democratic constitutional monarchy. There is an interesting story of how democracy was introduced in Bhutan. Our 4th king, His Majesty King Chimsigi Wangchuk, who is actually responsible for coining the development philosophy of gross national happiness. A development philosophy which we consider is a comprehensive, but at the same time very much humanistic in its approach to development, was coined by this very king, who is also credited for introducing democracy in the country. At the age of 56, he gave up his throne and the kingship to introduce democracy in the country. And today we have the fourth democratically elected government in the country. The history of modern education in Bhutan is very, very young. We are still in a very nascent stage of modern education in the country. The first Western model of a school was established sometime in 1914, 1914, but then the real impetus and efforts for the development of a Western model of education in the country started only in the early 1960s with the launching of the first 5-year development plans in the country. And when it comes to inclusion, efforts to include children with special needs and disabilities in the mainstream education, until the early 2000s, as a developing country, we were struggling in our efforts to address the educational needs of the typically growing children. However, by then, with the government efforts, with the support of the development partners, and the good neighbors like India, we felt that we have managed to address the educational needs of these typically growing children. And early 2000, we started off our efforts to address the needs of children with special needs in the mainstream schools. As of today, as per the data that I have received from my colleagues in the Ministry of Education and Skills Development, there are 48 mainstream schools that caters for the needs of over 1,000 children with special needs and disabilities, with 2 schools that provide specialized educational services for children with blindness and deafness. In addition to the mainstream, public schools that makes provision for the education of children with disabilities, we have a number of NGOs that provides for the educational needs of children with special needs. And for instance, the Ability Bhutan Society is one such NGOs that provides or complements the efforts of the Ministry of Education and Skills Development in addressing the educational needs of children with special needs. And our queen, the young queen, we have is the patron of this Ability Bhutan Society. In fact, the lady that you see pushing the wheelchair is the young queen of the country. One of the challenges that we have in the country just now, because efforts and initiatives to address the needs of children with special needs and disabilities have been quite a recent initiative. We have the challenge of not having an official database regarding the population of persons with disabilities, not just children with disabilities or special needs. And in 2003, the Royal Government of Bhutan, through the Ministry of Health and the National Statistics Bureau, had commissioned a national health survey, which is considered as one of the most comprehensive disability survey that the country has initiated so far, wherein the findings show that 48,325 persons with disabilities exist in Bhutan, where they represent 6.8% of the total population of over 700,000 people in the country. So, some information regarding this National Health Survey 2023, the most detailed survey also of its kind till date, and the survey was a self-reported survey and covered those children 5 years and above, older in the 20 Dzongkhoks. Dzongkhok is an equivalent of a state here in India. But mind you, Bhutan is very tiny. Okay, tiny. As informed earlier, 48,225 persons with disability in the country out of 710,667 people. And the following are some of the prevalence of disability in the different categories: healthcare, hearing, mobility, vision, cognition, and communication. Some of the recent milestones in the development of inclusive education in Bhutan. The Ministry of Education and Skills Development had launched standards for inclusive education in Bhutan to enable the school principals, school teachers to guide inclusive education efforts in the country. Okay. Along with that, the ministry has also developed guidelines on assessment, examination, promotion and transition of children with disabilities, which was officially approved and endorsed for implementation sometime in 2018. The Ministry of Education has also drawn up a 10-year roadmap for inclusive education in Bhutan, endorsed in 2019, which I was a part of it in terms of drafting that 10-year roadmap for inclusion in Bhutan. We have also documented a Bhutanese Sign Language, which was officially, because initially when we started the deaf education unit, it's called as, in our language, it's called as Wangsel, means dispelling all forms of ignorance. Wangsel Institute. Our children were taught sign language based very much modeled upon some of the sign languages that you use here in India. But then there was a need to localize the sign language, and this happened sometime in 2021. Along with the development of that sign language, the Ministry of Education and Skills Development has also launched a Bhutanese Sign Language apps to enable the students that goes to this Wangsel Institute, the School for the Deaf, to communicate not just amongst themselves, not just to be able to learn at school, but also learn to communicate with the broader community members. The Ministry of Education has also developed the technical and vocational education training curriculum framework for learners with disabilities. Some policies and legislations at the national level that supports inclusion of children with special needs and disabilities. The Constitution, there is a specific section, an article within the Constitution of the Kingdom of Bhutan that protects the fundamental rights of every Bhutanese child to quality education. The 2003 Education Sector Strategy, which has been developed as a vision document for guiding and developing education, aligned with the gross national happiness philosophy development. This also served as a very strong foundational policy development to guide inclusion efforts in the country. The Bhutan Education Blueprint, which was a document drafted and developed as a 10-year roadmap for the development of education in the country between 2014 to 2024, has also a specific mention about the need to address the educational needs of children with special needs. In 2019, we believe that this has been a historic moment for children and persons with disabilities in the country. The government endorsed the National Policy for Persons with Disabilities in 2019. And the most recent National Education Policy, which has been approved in December 2024, just a few months ago, also has a specific mention regarding the need and the importance to meet the educational needs of children with disabilities. For international policies and legislations related to at an international context, we have ratified the UN Convention on the Rights of the Child in 1990. We have been a signatory to the UN Convention on the Rights of Persons with Disabilities, which was then ratified in 2023. Sorry, there is a repetition. Point number 3 and 4 are repetition. So with this, however, with these national policies in place, with commitments to adhere to the international legislations and instruments to achieve our inclusion goals, we have challenges. There are challenges and difficulties we still struggle to work with. So some of the threats and challenges that we have, especially in meeting the needs of children with special needs and disabilities, are not so different from the ones that we got to hear in the sessions yesterday and day before. Okay. Resources for a country that is developing, where the economy has been basically agrarian in nature. Of the last 2 to 3 decades, we have tried to capitalize on in tapping the fast-flowing rivers to generate hydropower. Other than that, Bhutan has been primarily a very agrarian economy, and for such a country, resources has always been an issue. Both resources in terms of human, financial, and infrastructure. The attitude towards people with disabilities is one of the greatest barriers to inclusion. While the government makes concerted efforts to include children in mainstream education through various forms of provisions, oftentimes, especially if the parents happen to be people who do not have the required educational background and awareness of the need to educate their children despite their needs and disabilities, parents often are very, very protective of the children, and their attitudes, serve as a serious threat and barriers to our inclusion efforts. There are stereotypes and the social stigma towards disability because this group of children are seen as less able. Okay. I think that kind of social stigma and the stereotypes attached also proves as a serious impediment to our inclusion efforts. The teacher competencies curriculum, which often are seen as rigid, not very flexible, and the assessment practices, which are mostly summative in nature. While there are continuous efforts being made to address such issues, still these systemic issues proves to be threats and challenges. Because I informed you that our inclusion efforts is very new. So far, our focus has been on getting access, making education accessible to children with special needs. And our focus and efforts have been mostly, centered around addressing the children's education at the primary level. So we still have challenges to ensure that children with special needs and disabilities have a very smooth transition into secondary and higher education system. The employment and the job market, the readiness of the employers to absorb and be able to employ children with special needs is still an issue. School leadership, oftentimes school leaders who are not, who do not have much knowledge about the potentials, the strengths, the positive values of inclusion are also can also be a serious blocker to the country's inclusion efforts. And the eighth one, the lack of comprehensive official data regarding people with disabilities that I already mentioned, often serves as a challenge to put forth our arguments for inclusion. Well, we have challenges, like any other systems. Our king always tells us that what we do not have in size and quantity in numbers should be addressed through quality. Capitalizing on our own smallness, as a strength, learning to address those or see those challenges and convert them into opportunities and possibilities. So the political will of the government of the country, any successive democratically elected governments we have had since 2008 has considered inclusion as a serious agenda in their development efforts. So there is a very strong political will to address the needs of children with special needs. The royal patronage, the king himself, the queen, and many of the royal family members are in many ways involved as patrons of most of the NGOs that serves the needs of people with special needs. Policies and legal framework for inclusive education for a small country like us. I know that in India, for me, someone who follows educational practices, in particular inclusion efforts in the region and the world outside this region, I know that India has been able to develop, endorse legislations, policies, acts to address the needs of this special group of people in the system. Yet, because India is so huge a country, isn't it? Over 1 billion people, there are still challenges. But when I get to listen to the presentations, talks shared here, there are so many things that you have managed to do. I was thinking that this is a treasure trove of learning. The kind of people that has come to present papers, share their views, share their experiences, are so passionate. People who have been able to find a strong sense of purpose in addressing the needs of children with special needs. There is I think a clear vision and a goal at your own personal level to address such a need in the country. And this kind of conferences that brings together such like-minded professionals, academics, research, inclusion advocates, practitioners, should happen more. And I think, imagine the strength and the power that we can generate together by bringing these like-minded intellectuals. And I salute to each and every one of you for that beautiful work that you are doing. For us, a small country that prides in a development philosophy that is very unique, that measures the prosperity and the growth of the country through a happiness index and the well-being, emotional health and well-being of the people over the more conventional, gross domestic product. Any development efforts that we, develop in the country or plan in the country is aligned with this one. And the inclusion, the principles of inclusion fits in very well with the bigger development philosophy of cross-national happiness. And we always think that we can take advantage of such a development approach that we have in the country to address inclusion goals and visions. The Buddhists believe in karma. Buddhism as Hinduism as the origin of Buddhism, where you believe in your belief in karma, good begets good, can also be taken as a positive advantage to address the needs of this special group of people in the country. the support of international development partners, especially UNICEF, we have had a very excellent track record of working with international development partners. And we take this as an advantage and an added strength to be able to achieve our inclusion goals in the years to come. So with this, Kadin Chain in Bhutanese means thank you very much. So if you have time, if there are questions, maybe I'll take a few questions. I'm not in the best of my health today, but I'll make every possible attempt to be able to answer your questions if you have any. Thanks a lot once again.
Thank you very much, Dr. Dorji, for taking us around your beautiful country. Now, if you have any questions for Dr. Dorji, we have 5 minutes because I have not yet got a red light from our guests.
I always have a question. I always seem to have a question. Rinchen, thank you for your wonderful presentation. I was interested in the bridge between education and the employers, and if you have any kind of supports through rehabilitation. I know in the United States we have things like a program supported employment, where you have people who work with the educators and the individuals and the employers to make that bridge. I was wondering if you have that, if you thought about it, or where that is. Thank you.
Thank you, Professor Dalton, for that question. We have the government and the relevant agencies actually have made attempts and efforts to, address these challenges through programs and in fact initiatives of providing some level of incentives to any potential employers and organizations that provides jobs and employment opportunities to children or people or persons with disabilities. And however, these are not very official at the moment. But the fact that now we have the since 2018 we have the government has officially endorsed the national policy for persons with disabilities, and the most recent national policy for education, have been endorsed. We are now hoping to be able to work on strategies that are intellectually or intelligently crafted to ensure that we learn from the best practices that are there elsewhere. India as a very close neighbor, then from the region, from the west, and then be able to align such strategies that suits our socio-cultural context in Bhutan. Because yesterday we did hear some of our colleagues talking about the need to be sensitive to the cultural context. At the same time, I think it was in your presentation on UTL, you mentioned about, and Dr. Suzy also mentioned about the cultural competence. So this, how we are planning to do it. But at the moment, such kind of arrangements are not very official and formal. I hope I answered you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
So sorry sir, we have one more question at the last.
Where are you?
We have one more question at the last. I just passed the mic to
Can you show yourself? Oh, okay.
She's running. Right in the front. Jogging.
Thank you, Professor. That was a really enlightening session.
Speak louder, Sean.
Can you hear?
No.
My question is related to how we can learn from Bhutan, actually. And I think in terms of an asset-based approach, the philosophical approach that you have shared with us, I think is profoundly inclusive. So I'm thinking about how larger countries, perhaps such as India, richer countries such as the United Kingdom and the United States, what efforts are being made perhaps by your government and by your university to spread that profoundly different perspective in relation to the nature of what makes a good society?
Thank you, Sean, for that question. I'm not sure if what we do actually would work in other countries, especially in a country like India. You know, we're talking about a country that has a population of not just even 1 million, whereas in India the population has crossed over 1.4 billion. But at the same time, you know, I think if you look at the size of the country and the size of the population, if you look on the positive side, you know, I think India has a lot of opportunities, and I think in many ways you have been able to, you know, optimally make the best use of it. I have also read that India has a very young, as a population, is a very young nation. And the fact that you know most of the participants in this conference are young people who are quite futuristic, you are thinking, forward-looking. I think you should respect and value the future that your elders have built for you. And in terms of the how Bhutan can show to the rest of the world, irrespective of the cultural differences, irrespective of the size and the size of the country and the population, I think the humanness that each human beings bring to our lives. Through this development philosophy of cross-national happiness, we are a country that is not overly drugged and obsessed by this, you know, the materialistic forms of development approach. And the way we do it, the cross-national happiness as a development philosophy has 4 pillars, main pillars. One is environmental conservation. Second is cultural preservation and promotion of our own country. And the second one, the cultural preservation and conservation, is very strategic. We are a small country, okay? We mostly, you know, our relationship with India has always been friendly. I was sharing with some of my friends from abroad saying that when you are in India, or if I see an Indian friend outside India, outside the region, that feeling gives me a sense of homeliness. That level of activities. And for us it's very strategic because we cannot show our sovereignty and independence by building a military might. Today, for this conference, if I was wearing pants and shirt like any one of you, many of you could easily mistake me for a Northeast Indian, isn't it? Or maybe a Korean or a Chinese or a Japanese. So this is my national day dress. This is my identity. And this is me as part of my I said, cultural preservation, environmental conservation, The third one is sustainable development and balanced regional development. Okay. And the fourth one is good governance. In the absence of good governance, I don't think that Bhutan will be able to realize GNH as a development philosophy. And I tell you, friends, this is our vision. For any Bhutanese to claim that we are a happy country, it would still be a very misguided influence that you would give to people. This is a vision that helps us to move forward. But today, if you look at our country's situation, we have our own share of challenges and threats. But at the same time, do we feel comfortable living with those challenges and threats? No. We would like to convert those challenges and threats into opportunities and possibilities. And I think the world together, given that human goodness that each and every one of us brings in our own selves, each one of us has to be able to do our own bit to make a difference in the community, in the society. I think this is how we can show to the rest of the world. But it is not just Bhutanese alone. I think that humanness, the inherent goodness is there in each and every one of us. We do not have to be a Bhutanese to be able to show that, isn't it? So this is, I think, what we can do together as a global community. But thank you, Sean, for that lovely question.